Well. It's been a long time. I have to remind myself how to actually use StreamYard. Now, I apologize for the delays and hope you didn't miss me too much. So, we're going to be discussing codependency. I have some notes about like 1, 2, 3, nearly 4 pages, and unfortunately, I'm a bit ill prepared. There's a bit of urgency for me to get this done, so my notes aren't very well organized. And I see we have already 2 people watching. We have some comments, so welcome. Wind, good to see you. D-Man, good to see you. Thank you. Gentlemen, hope you're doing well. Jim, good to see you too. Hope you're doing well. This is going to be a very, I hope, interesting, as always, should be interesting, but a revelation for people, because, see, I'm going to have to I'm actually adding notes, because the codependent doesn't really want to admit they're a codependent. And we will get into why they don't want to admit that as we go along. And I would not suggest, but I believe a lot of what men, especially in particular, are dealing with is codependency. And there's nothing to be ashamed of. And the first section we're going to be covering will be the misconceptions of what codependency are. Hold on, let me just. Right. So, because a lot of people think, codependency, to depend, to be reliant on someone. And so if you're reliant on someone instead of yourself, ergo, it's easy to think that you must be a codependent. And it's a little bit more intricate than that. How so? So it's been said before, things like a simp, a blue pillar, he's a codependent. And yes, in many ways he is. Angler, good to see you. I hope you're doing well, my friend, my brother. Hemi 4 Speed, Mr. Hemi. Good to see you. Welcome aboard. So we're just discussing codependency and the misconceptions. So, yes, a simp, a blue pillar, average Joe or whoever. Yes, the people who are dependent on society, we can consider these as codependents. But not all codependents are simps. So it's not so straightforward and black and white. And unfortunately, as we're going to be discussing this further, things like black and white, things like narcissism and borderline are going to be intertwined into this conversation, because they're like siblings. They all relate to one another. They are brothers and sisters, all brought up in different rooms, but of the same dysfunctional household. So there are going to be overlaps, there's going to be similarities, there are going to be differences, but they share classifications, a class, as it were. And under this umbrella, we can say that these are people who have been injured emotionally deeply, they carry trauma, and as a result, they end up becoming unhealthy and having unhealthy lifestyles, patterns of thoughts and behaviors, and their emotions are unregulated. So their life becomes a struggle to try and have control and order and a sense of being of themselves, like their identity. So issues of low self-esteem, etc., sense of self-worth, respect, poor boundaries. And so this is how, just like for a codependent and a narcissist and a borderline, they all share the same kind of criteria. Like they each have poor sense of self. I mean, the narcissist basically hasn't got any sense of self, but there isn't a fortified, solidified, authentic self-esteem, as it were. And they all share each of these diagnoses. Would have poor boundaries, poor emotional literacy. So they're very relatable. How the reason why they're different and they're not just so like, well, isn't a borderline just a narcissist then? Aren't they all just, can't we just have one term for them all? How are they different? Is that they each have similar issues, but the way they look at these issues is where the difference is. And so they interpret, and they all have they each have their own point of view of how they're going to tackle this problem. So when they address this issue and they share this they have different interpretations, but fundamentally there is a misinterpretation, so that they're each kind of wrong the way they're looking at their problems. And so how they go about addressing their situations results in the complication, the outcome, which is kind of similar. Like, let's say, the need to be reliant on other people. So, for example, the narcissist requires fuel and supply. Well, guess what? So does the codependent, but it's in a different sort of manner, in a different kind of form. For the codependent, they try to become the idolized sources. They want to be the best. They want to be the best servant they can possibly be. They want to be the ultimate supply for someone else, so that they don't feel abandoned. They don't feel insignificant, worthless. So the codependent, the way they get, I'm going to refer to just it could be he or she, but I'm just going to say he for argument's sake. So for the codependent, he gets his source of self-esteem through other people, just like a narcissist. He can't generate his own self-esteem, not yet, and not unless until he's done, healing, recovery, and therapy, etc. But as the condition is developing. Now, another reason why they're all siblings, they're all mutually damaged and injured, is typically from the way they've been raised. So it's the poor parenting style that was used to bring up these children. So here we look into the different kind of ways of parenting style. There could be intimidation, there could be neglect, and then you've got attachment styles as well that will factor in. So to kind of cut it a bit quicker, basically they don't learn what it means. They don't learn the true meaning of love. And it's not really something you can just hand to someone like, here you go, this is what love means. So what ends up happening is they learn love is a transaction. And this becomes the motto of the codependent. I must do something in order to feel love and appreciate, like to feel appreciated. Like I'm not good enough being myself. I'm not accepted being myself. So I must become the servant, the best servant possibly I can be. So they sacrifice themselves, just like a narcissist who doesn't like their true authentic self and sacrifices that part of them and becomes a fictitious, idolized presentation, like how it is with the narcissism. So it's they rub up against each other. It gets a bit too close for comfort. People listening might be like, "Oh no, don't tell me I'm a narcissist." No, it's not quite like that either. I mean, the narcissist has utter utter disgust for the true self, and wants to kill it if possible. The codependent, although doesn't feel, he wants to be his authentic true self. So he hasn't divorced himself from his soul. The narcissist doesn't want anything. Don't talk to the narcissist about their true self. Like, shh, we won't say that name here, kind of thing. Like, it's got nothing to. We were divorced long ago. Because it brings in the feelings of shame and less than and all this sort of stuff. So the narcissist is much more grandiose in that sense. They want a pristine self-image. So we can't have any icky, authentic weakling of a true self that's pitiful. So I hope we can understand the difference here. Like, they both share this damaged, authentic true self. But the codependent, he wants to be the true self. He's almost like he's carrying a dead body around with him in his hands, and he's asking people, "Hey, could you make my true self here feel happy?" So again, another similarity is that we see that both these kinds of people, including the borderline as well, but I'm using narcissist and the codependent because it's a much more sort of like polar opposites in a way. Even though they're on the same kind of fence of unhealthy, they're a bit polar opposite in some of their behaviors. But they're both outsourcing for other people to make them feel better, because they can't make themselves feel better, because they're not connected to their true self properly. Their true self has been stunted and shunned and not approved. So how is it's not going to be able to make itself feel better. So it requires essentially caregivers bouncing back the supply, the acknowledgement that you're doing all right. So I'll start steering away from talking about narcissism and focus more on the codependent now. I think I made the nuances a bit more evident. So the codependent, fundamentally, so this is someone who will have low self. Now, this might resonate with a lot of people, because a lot of men will, especially in the manosphere and the red pill and the MGTOW sort of community, find, if you listen closely to their words, and you can hear the pain of their soul. And so they have low self-esteem, they have low self-respect, they have low motivation. Well, actually, the reason why they have low motivation is because after a while a collapse happens. But initially, in the beginning, it's all guns are blazing. They'll do anything for you. They're highly motivated. They'll move the mountain and the world for you if you ask them. You don't even have to beg them or anything like that. The codependent will find a need that, with their hypersensitivity, just like a narcissist, they'll find other people's weakness and vulnerabilities and be like, "Hey, I noticed you're struggling with your shopping. I can help you with that." So they create a need for themselves to be needed. So the codependent needs to feel needed. I mean, the narcissist doesn't want to. They kind of need to feel needed, but it's because they basically want to abuse people. It's a fault. They don't really want to help people. They just want to exploit them. So anyway, back to the codependent. Low self-esteem, poor sense of identity, a somewhat of a kind of imposter syndrome, because they have to be essentially they have to be someone somewhat they know is not really honest as true. For example, they have a hard time saying no to people. So let's say someone asks them for help, and the codependent deep down really doesn't want to help them. Instead of saying no, he'll say yes. So he knows he's being a bit of a liar to himself, because he's denying himself being true. He's not allowing himself to have his own emotions and feelings. And this is just a sort of tip of the iceberg. So as a result, as a consequence, he can't regulate his own emotions. He can't understand his idea of love is transactional based. So he doesn't know what love is. Not at this stage. It's later on, when he does his healing and recovery, will he have to redefine this deep stuff. And this is why it's very philosophical. And this is why MGTOW and Red Pill and things like that lean into philosophy so much, because it's the healing. This is where the magic is really happening. And this is why MGTOWs, and once they've done some deep dives and things like that, they feel so much better, because they're becoming more in touch with the true self. Well, I'm jumping the gun. We're not at that part yet. We're still at the misconceptions here. So so the codependent doesn't understand what love is. He thinks he does. He thinks his idea of love is to sacrifice. The more he gives, the more he will have a reward. So he has a slave morality. He's a servant. His motto is, I live solely to die. As a servant, I die in service, and that's a death of honor for the codependent. If he was struck out by randomly, like crossing the road, got hit by a car, and struck out dead, he would be pissed off, because he has deep shame and guilt. He would be annoyed that he's been taken out and he left things, he left the tumble dryer on at home or whatever. So he wants to have, in some ways, like a heroic life. He wants to know that his life meant something. And so he collects sort of like mementos, his journey, and creates a narrative, like a storyline. And again, this is like magical emotional thinking, because life isn't a movie. We aren't books and pages that you can flip through chapters and go backwards and forwards and things like that. It's linear, so low self-esteem, low identity, low respect, poor self-care, because he doesn't feel like he's worth anything. So he won't look after himself very well. He'll do it because his esteem, if other people are appreciating him and everything is going well, kind of thing like that, then yes, he'll be looking after himself, etc. But once people have either shunned him or he's no use to anyone anymore, then he's not going to help himself. His job is to be the servant, to help other people. It's no good him being a servant if he's got servants of his own, because what does that make them and what does that make him? So he won't accept help. He'll be reluctant to accept help because it will make him feel guilty. He doesn't want to accept help from a doctor. Usually he'll be reluctant to go see a doctor because he doesn't have the self-worth, or thinks he deserves the attention, because it makes him feel guilty. So this becomes self-harm, and he sees this self-harm. He ties that in with, well, if I'm hurting myself, if I'm getting damaged and worn out, that must mean I'm being a good servant who's working really hard. So he almost takes a pride in his banged up body, in a way, or his deterioration, because to him this is like a form of validation. I'm deteriorating. I must be doing good. So he lives his life in order to basically sacrifice it, and like, he's not really, it's not like he's got like a primary goal of like, I'm going to destroy myself. He's not so self-destructive with intent in that way. It's just the way he's now misconstrued the self-destruction, just like a narcissist who self-destructs. But but they're doing it the narcissist does it in a kind of like a drug frenzied sort of rampaging kind of because they're just so out of control. But for the codependent, it's the idea that he wants to feel love. Essentially, he wants to feel the love that was denied from his childhood. And the thing is, he's a stranger to it. So even if someone was to give him this love, he wouldn't know exactly what to do with it. He might not even recognize he's being given true, authentic love. If he does, there's a good chance he's going to feel undeserving of it, because he's meant to be the servant. So he might push away from someone who's truly trying to love him and care for him, because he doesn't want to feel guilty. It's his job to look after other people. Now, let me just check my notes a second. So when people say, if a man is jabbering about women all the time, he's a codependent, that's a bit slapdash. Yes, okay, yes, you could say it's addiction, but I'm hoping that we're beginning to see that it's much more. The stakes are a lot higher than that, because of how deep the wounds are that cause. In actuality, it's not the woman he's addicted to, because he's placed his esteem in her or whoever he's whoever he's attached to. His identity, his esteem, his sense of self-worth, his pride. That is what he's addicted to. That is what he's dependent on. The person, in a way, is a carrier, is a mirror that's bouncing back his sense of self-worth. So it doesn't. That person, in a way, is not really that important. And again, as we go further into it, I'm not sure if I got it written out in my notes properly, but the more the codependent realizes his true value, his true identity, and things like this, refer to my video, What's Love Got to Do with It? He'll realize that the qualities he thought he loved in whoever it is he's attached to are his own qualities. So what he's done is he's taken his true, authentic self, what he wants to be, and he's kind of like a printout, and slapped it on the face of this other person. And so he's remaining with a false sense of identity, a misperceived way of looking at himself. So he's carrying a false identity, and his true identity is on the face of whoever it is he's attached to. So when he's looking at that person and he thinks it's their soulmate, or that this person understands them so well, he's really looking at himself. So there's this dissociation, a splitting that's going on with a codependent, very much like a borderline who does a lot of splitting. So see, the narcissist will idolize someone else, because the more value someone else has, the more it's like living vicariously by proxy. So it's like if you're dating a celebrity, that must make you somewhat celebrity as well, kind of thing. It raises your status. So there's idolizations going on that they all share. But the codependent doesn't want to acknowledge and won't admit that the person he's attached to is the reflection of himself. So he sees that person, he sees his true authentic self as someone else, and he attributes this to the person he's attached to. So at some point in like the terms of recovery and healing, he's going to have to realize he's got to take his heart back. He can't give his heart to someone and pretend that his heart is theirs. It's not going to work. especially if they run off with it, or give it to someone else. So I'm just looking at my notes. So a quick way of sort of summarize. So I want to make people happy because fundamentally, I want to be able to make myself happy, and I can't. So I need people. I use people, not to be malicious and to exploit them, but I use people so that I can be happy. And because he's using people to make himself happy, this is a false sense of happiness. This happy that he's trying to chase isn't actually a true happiness. He doesn't understand what happiness means. And the more he tries to chase it, this is the sort of proverb of, like, there's no way to happiness. Happiness is the way. The more you try and chase it, the more happiness will escape you. You'll be in a deficit position. So in my notes I've written here, he mistakenly believes the other holds the key to his heart when really it is himself. So he needs to realize he's holding the key. And he has all the answers if he's honest and true enough to sort of self-reflect. This is why self-reflection, to take some time away from the situation and really, like, reconnect, reunite with the true self. And there's going to be like a magical ending to this, because well, I might as well throw it in here now, actually, otherwise I might forget. Because when he does finally reconnect to himself, he'll realize that who he's reconnecting to is the child that was neglected in the very beginning, who he thought had died, who he was trying to resuscitate. And so this is a bit like time travel in a way, because because when he reunites with himself, that self, that true self, was prevented from growing any further. It was stunted, and that's why it's a child. It's in a child form. His inner child. It's not his inner adult or inner adolescent. It's a child, because that's where the damage was inflicted and the growth had ceased. So he reunites with his true self. He reintroduces himself to his true self. He says, "Hello, I am the older you, and I see that I understand your pains. I know you've got a broken heart, kind of thing. You weren't given unconditional love when you were a child, but I'm here now, and I know how much it hurts, and I'm going to give you the unconditional love that you never got." So the codependent, once he reaches the level of his emotional maturity and literacy, he's more in tune with his emotions. He understands the mechanics of his emotions. He knows that he's been deluding himself and looking at everything sort of like arse backwards in a way. He realizes that it is still possible to rectify mistakes of the past, and it's not going to be by other people. Instead of being a servant to others and being the greatest tool and asset and helper to other people, he realized that the best person he can help is himself. And then he hopefully will realize that now the real work, the way he likes to think he's a worker. So now the hard work, the inner work, now it really begins, and it's worth it. This will be the true rewarding work of being able not just to get back in touch with your younger self, but to be able to self-parent your younger self and give him the love, appreciation, and restore his heart where it really should belong. And that's why in that video I said, what's love got to do with it? Check it out on my playlist or whatever. I make a point where when you restore where your heart really should belong, or truly should belong, you will heal. There won't be any. I mean, it's going to be still painful. Obviously, it's still going to take time, but that's the direction to go. Fundamentally, is to restore your heart where it truly belongs. To stop giving it to other people, expecting them to somehow like look after it for you. It's not theirs. It's not their responsibility. And as a result of poor boundaries, this is why that kind of element happens. Anyway, I'm rambling on a little bit here, and we've got 4 pages to get through, and I've already just got through like the first paragraph. So he looks at his reflection and believes that to be true, which makes him think he's the one that doesn't really. Okay, so going back to this mirror idea with other people, he sees the true self on other people, and if what he sees is the true self, in his mind, that makes him the reflection. That makes him. I mean, and this is a sort of like the good versus bad. So if the image he sees is good and innocent and lovely and things like this, and it's but it's the reflection. He doesn't know it's a reflection. He thinks it's an authentic person, but he believes he is the reflection. And what's the reflection of good? That means he's bad. That means he's disgusting and shameful and whatever. So he feels somewhat like a ghost. And because, again, with a lack of identity, you don't know who you are, you're walking around in life, of course you're not going to feel very in this world, as it were. So magical thinking, emotional thinking, there's not much critical thinking going on. Logical thinking. So yes, you can. Okay, so his self-esteem is constantly depleting because his esteem is like his happiness, and he's chasing it. He's trying to find his happiness and all this. But by the way, I do see people leaving comments. I'm sorry, I'm not reading them out just yet because I'm in my flow. I'll try and I'll take a breather when I run out of breath, and then I'll go over them. So if you want to leave questions or you have any remarks, go ahead. Don't be shy. But just I'll get to it when I get to it. So I'll quickly cover esteem. So his esteem is constantly depleting. He's constantly chasing it. I already mentioned he won't care for himself. He doesn't know how to care for himself unless someone is giving him the esteem he is looking for. And then really, he's not really looking after himself for his own benefit. He's looking after himself so that he can become a better servant. So okay. So he has a strong inner critic, self-hating mindset. So he becomes his own judge, jury, and executioner. And this gives him, I don't know why I've written this in the esteem part. I've got an anger section here. Really, I should put this in the anger section. But this gives him a deep-seated like anger and resentment. And depending on what happens in his life, it can boil over. So don't piss off a codependent, because he's like a soldier. He's like a warrior. He'll die for his country. He'll die for his brothers and his family. So if there's a misjustice, if there's something he thinks is wrong, he's someone who's gonna go all the way, because he's he is die in service kind of thing, then don't mess with a codependent, really, in that sense, because he'll fuck you up. He'll basically deploy the psychopath and kick your ass with that. So he's got deep resentment, deep anger, and he's ashamed of having this as well, which kind of like goes in a circle. So he becomes angry at being angry. So when someone betrays his trust, or just simply betrays him or lies to him, depending how things go, he'll want to be angry at them, but he'll be, even though he might be raging at this other person, partner's cheated on you or something like that, but it comes back to him, and he realizes no matter how angry I am with her, or whoever it is that's cheated on me, I'm more angry at myself because I effed up, and he blames himself. And this is why also he's willing to endure any level of punishment, because no one can hurt him as much as he can hurt himself. In some ways, because of his like superhero complex, that makes him like a superhero. He's invulnerable to other people's pain, because you can't hurt me more than I can hurt myself. Okay, so that's that little section. All right. Now the next section we're going to be looking at is fear, and that's a bit chunky. That's going to be another rabbit hole. So let me just go. I'm really sorry. We'll go to the top. I'll catch up with these comments. So hello. Who else has joined recently? And Manny's here. Good to see you, man. Yo, did I hear the N word? You did hear the N word. Pagoda. It's been a long time since we've seen you around, man. How you been? I don't know if you're still. It says there's 2 watching. You guys are slackers, but they kill others. This is a downside of not reading comments while we're talking. So Amani says, a good form of therapy, in my opinion, is cognitive mindfulness therapy. It's basically meditation focusing on your true thoughts. Yes, mindfulness. Being present in mind, having the awareness. And I would suggest with that kind of approach as well, it's good to have a verification. Because it's no good you saying to yourself, oh yeah, I think I got it worked out. Well, how do you know? You if you're thinking from your own point of view, like, you need to have a bit of I was going to say dissonance, but I mean a detachment, an outer body experience, to be able to self-reflect, to look back and inwardly look within. But you still need other people to sort of verify it, because you're going to have a bias. So, Mr. Hemi, the narc. No, we're talking about codependence mainly. Angler, holy shit! Can you show me who I am? They lie for the narcissist. Yes, the codependent, as honourable sounding as they might be, don't think they won't blackmail people. They'll break the law because they want to make other people happy. Because just like the other personality styles, they're being driven by their emotions. Critical thinking, logic, is not in play here. We're operating on emotions and feelings and things like that. Magical thinking, mental gymnastics, and this is how they'll kind of like rationalize it in their mind. And so, like, who writes good music? A borderline, because the borderline too much emotion, overwhelmed by emotion. But I'd say followed closely would be the codependent. That's why a lot of music, emotional music, you know what I mean? Well, look at emotional personality styles. So, Mr. Hemi, yes, they will lie to self-preserve, lie to appease, lie to diffuse, lie to try and buy that shred of favor that narc may or may not bestow upon them. Yeah, it's the means isn't really what matters. This is why. So their morals and ethics are fluctuating. They're liquid. It's the goal. What am I trying to achieve here? What is it I want? I want love. Okay. All right. I want attention. Okay. I want. I need some money. Okay. Right. How do I do it? You know, this way. Okay. Is it the right way of doing it? Well, I don't know, but it should give me the right outcome, so I'll do it. And so they don't really pause for like a second thought to critically think, hang on, is this going to be a good idea? What are the consequences? So they're all on board, they jump in. And it's not until afterwards when things are collapsing or there's the consequence, accountability or consequence rears its head, they realize, damn, what happened there? I didn't see it coming. It's like, well, of course you didn't see it coming. You weren't, because you weren't really looking properly. So, okay, getting abused and saying it's all right. Yes, that's like gaslighting. And I think cognitive dissonance as well was mentioned. Yes. Okay. He's addicted to the abuse. Yes. Because one, he doesn't feel like he deserves any happiness or any love. He's deeply ashamed of himself. So he should be. Slaves are meant to be whipped and punished. So, and a little bit like a borderline, the pain kind of like signals to him that he's alive, that he does feel something, and what he feels is pain. He lives in a world of pain. The codependent he has no happy because he's trying to make other people happy, so he can't be happy. So what is he left with? Pain, disappointment, regret, frustration, anger, negative stuff. So yeah. So, Mr. Hemi, well, the abuse leads to the eventual bone of validation. He has to endure one to get another. Mine was BPD with heavy narc traits. Yes, there is actually a narcissistic component built into borderline that behaves differently than someone who is, like, say, full NPD. But yeah, a comorbidity, and those two are very closely linked, like borderline and narcissist. And obviously, as such, they're a lot harder to treat. So if you are recognizing yourself as a codependent, you have a bit of hope there, because you can, with a bit of attention, healing, and recovery and therapy, etc., you can improve your situation. The other extreme, look at the narcissist. They're not going to improve their situation. They're adaptive. They're they believe they are the cure. They all do to an extent. What they're doing is the right way. They all believe they're doing the right thing, but the narcissist really doesn't want your therapy and your love. It kills them. So there's nothing you can do with a narcissist. People say that you can treat them, but I don't see that really happening. Have you passed the point where you question if you are an narc? Okay, that's an interesting. A lot of people have this moment where they think, maybe I'm the narc here. And quite common, the response I hear is like, look, if you're considering whether or not you're a narc, then you're not a narc, because a narcissist wouldn't do that, apparently. But I see that somewhat changing in modern era. So as a codependent, we take on narc behaviors. Well, yes, because we have poor boundaries and we're bending to the will of where we want to become the ultimate supply for the narcissist, for whoever. I'm going to talk into a bit about relationship partners we choose, and so it's not uncommon for a codependent to pair up with a narcissist. You've got someone who wants to be the ultimate giver, and you've got someone who wants to be the ultimate taker. Well, they're a perfect fit for each other. And so to be a good servant, to be the best provider and supply, they're going to bend and contort themselves to whatever situation or whoever it is they're dealing with. So yeah, they'll take on other people's behaviors because they haven't got their own sense of self to prevent that as well from happening. I wish you, sadly, you get too much, my friend. I'm not too sure what you're saying there. I wish you had I wish you just had a general idea of it. Arrested Development, yes, Amani. We have found our authority. Totally Reloaded, Manly, yes. Are you going to open this up? Oh, yes, Angler. I'll probably eventually we'll get around there. Would you like me to open it up now? It's just I feel like I might not cover my points with my half written script. I'll try and quickly catch up with these comments. Ironically, due to woman's hypergamy, no matter how good a servant is, he is, it won't ever be enough. No, that's right. And the more a servant you are for her, the less she respects you. It's a death spiral. Yes. And he doesn't, and that's an interesting one that you bring up there, Mr. Hemi, because he doesn't realize that she's disrespecting him more and more. He thinks that's his fault, so what does he do? He gives more and more, and it pisses her off more and more, so she has more and more contempt, and it doesn't make sense to him. He's like, why is she getting mad with me when I'm doing everything I possibly can for her? And it's because she sees how it's like, look how she sees like a pitiful servant, like what's happened to you? You got no backbone, no spine. You're putting up with my abuse. I'm cheating on you, and you still love me. What's wrong with you? And he's like, but I thought that was perfect. I thought that's wonderful. So they both have different ideas of what would how the way things should be, or their idea of what quality is, or something like that. Indy MGTOW, how you doing, man? All right, I'm gonna have to sort of. Oh, okay. Whew. Just about to say I might have to just jump to the end, but I'm pretty much there. And Chris is here. Good evening, Chris. Emperor, sorry. My bad. Please don't punish me. Right. Back to the script. I'll get through this. I'll tell you what. I'll get through this fear section, and then I'll drop the link. Where did it go? Right. So I've written here in my notes, he's afraid of, and this is a little bit more formulated, so he's afraid of being happy for himself because he's allowed other people to be in charge of his happiness. If he does things for himself, he feels it's neglecting those in need, the people he's trying to help, so it makes him feel guilty if he takes time for himself. And this is why, like, when there's a breakup in a relationship, he's thrown into the abyss because he wants to help someone, but there's no one there to help. He doesn't know how to help himself, so he kind of conundrum. So when he does when he does things for himself, he feels selfish, and it disgusts him. His happiness disgusts him, and he's scared of what happiness could mean. He's scared of who he really is, because he grew up believing the true self wasn't acceptable and won't get him love. So he believes he is unlovable. Now, if we look at how narcissism borderlines have trust issues, there's no reason to suggest that a codependent doesn't have trust issues also. And with such a turbulent environment, his whole kind of way of behavior is tied into his. This is like a survival mechanism, technique, strategy he's developed. This is how to survive his frightful surroundings, and he can't trust it's going to stay. It's unstable, so he can't trust it's going to be stable. And because he has trust issues, he has security issues. So he feels insecure. He generally feels unsafe. He feels better when there's someone that seems to love him back, because now he can be reassured, and but it's a false sense of security. It just means that it pushes him to try and enmesh with people that much more, because he's scared. He's still emotionally a young little child. He's still a young little boy. They're scared. So when he kind of bonds with someone, it's going to be, a strong bond, like a trauma bond, like they're my soulmate kind of thing. And he's going to be fully invested, because he is a fully invested worker, servant, above and beyond. Right. Now, this might interest a lot of people. So why is it he chooses a toxic partner? A crazy bitch. Or if this is a girl, do a gender swap, why does she choose the bad boys? So because they got such low self-esteem, they're full of self-hate. I know I'm repeating things over and over again, but it's just how it is. They don't believe they feel deserving of someone who is actually healthy. Because someone who is healthy in their mind wouldn't need their help. And their healthiness highlights the codependent's wounds. Because the codependent will try and help a healthy person, and they'll be like, no, I don't need your help. So then it'll be like, makes the codependent think, well, why is it I'm trying to be helpful? What's wrong with me? I keep asking this, but one of their habits would be like asking, are you all right? Do you need help with anything? No, thank you all the time. Thank you. And after what, so they start realizing there's something wrong with me, because I'm getting a bit over the top. So the healthy person makes the codependent think, makes the codependent self-reflect, introspect, and makes the codependent feel shame. So like before, how the narcissist wants to be with a celebrity so that they can also feel like a celebrity. Well, this is kind of like the opposite. If they were with a celebrity or someone who was healthy, this makes the codependent feel shameful, because it's like, oh, damn. Even though at the same time they kind of feel like they deserve to be in that position. But it's like, you're such on a higher pedestal, really, Why are you wasting your time? I feel guilty that you're with me. So the healthy option, choosing a healthy partner, is off the table. What does that leave you? It leaves you unhealthy people to mingle with and to partner with. And this is looked at as the perfect match. Now the codependent can attend to the needs of the unhealthy person. Who else is in the unhealthy category? A narcissist. So if you have a narcissist and you have someone who is actually healthy, the codependent will choose the narcissist. Yeah, and we can obviously know that this is a big boo-boo mistake to make. If only he could be with the healthy person, then maybe he could, it could be an actual authentic happiness. You still need therapy and treatment. So this is a idolization of the relationship, which then makes the person in that relationship, the partner, idolize. Yes, he's idolizing primarily the relationship, and the partner he's paired with is like a secondary idolization. I might have to contemplate on that a little bit further just to make sure I'm not talking complete rubbish there. So even though they may mistreat you, for the codependent, he can rationalize it out. And typically this idealized relationship dynamic makes him feel like a child again. So he becomes like on the one hand he's a child. I mean, on one hand he's like a servant, but on another hand he's like a child. So it's like an obedient child of yours that that does the chores of the house or whatever. So there's familiarity, makes him feel like he's back at home in a way, wholesome or something like that. And the transactional love style gets reintroduced. So this is something he's familiar with. So he's like, great, this is a wonderful relationship. But at the same time, there's also a fear of losing this person because he has abandonment issues. And he also has, although he's infatuated with this partner, it's his soulmate, he's actually also kind of scared of her as well. Because what might she do if I piss her off? She might punish me big time, in a way that I won't be able to handle. Even though he has that motto of like, no one can hurt me more than myself. Well, she can, but it's because she's carrying his identity. So she kind of stabs him with his own sword. So he's like a child being scared of the parent, like, don't upset mummy or daddy. Mummy or daddy's going to beat me or punish me. So the child still loves mummy and daddy and wants, unconditional love, but there's also a fear there. And as we just discussed, the codependent has a undertone in the background of anxiety, of worry and concern, his safety and security. So he makes bad decisions anyway. He chooses bad people to partner with, and he sacrifices the better choice as a result of his fear, because he thinks this is safer when really it's the total opposite. And this is the thing where he'll think, well, I'm just following my gut. This is my intuition, and that will guide me. And unfortunately, it's made a mistake. So be careful with your intuition. And it should have been said by now that obviously this is a fawn response, fight, flight, freeze, fawn. So this is a fawn trying to please your threat, trying to, but it's kind of like a duality of the freeze and fawn. He becomes frozen in a fawn state. He's stuck there. He doesn't know what to do. Doesn't know how to get out of the situation anymore because he hasn't got because his self-agency isn't within himself. So how is he going to be? He's not at the controls of his own life. Other people are. He's transferred the responsibility of himself to other people. So he becomes at the mercy of others. And so the only thing he can do in his mind is like, right, so what's my mantra? Well, give, give, give. So he just basically gives, and more. Okay, that's the fear section. The next section is anger, and I've got a motto section. Really, I started off really with the motto section, but for some reason I pasted it down here. But as of my word, I said I'll open it up to the floor, to the panel, to the chat, whatever. Just quickly, how do I? All right. And it's been a while since I've used StreamYard, so I'm like, what do I do? Is that right? I think that's right. Right. And actually, while we're here, I just remembered there's banners. There are banners. Right. We've opened up the chat for some pole dancers. Uh-huh. I've got one here for a Manly. Remember this one? Damn. Right. I'll just put that one back to that one. Okay, anyway. So, do I have anyone backstage? No. All right, fine. Back to the script then. So, okay, I've got a tiny bit here for anger. I haven't really written it out. I've actually got a bloody pot noodle here right next to me. It's getting cold. I'm hungry. I'm so locked into my jabbering that I've forgotten to eat. That's the squelch. That's the sound of my pot noodle. Sorry, forgive me. Oh, half cold. Everyone's tuned in to hear Billy munching on grass. So I already mentioned the codependent has deep anger, resentment, and the inability to self-regulate, and his care make him feel frustrated. So he could be fiery. He could be a bit triggered at times. What was that? No. He can be provoke him a little bit, upset him a little bit. Oh, someone's here. Knock, knock. Oh, that must have been. Oh, hang on. I might have to get my headphones. It might be echo. The Emperor has graced us with his.
What's going on, Brother Billy?
Losing my mind.
Oh, well, we're all there.
Talking to myself is like. I feel much more reassured now you're here. I don't feel like.
Dude, I hate doing standalone. I like
it's a bit.
You guys in with me.
Well, because it just feels like I'm talking to myself, even though there's people in the chat. I know I'm not like ignoring you intentionally, but still, it's not quite the same as actually hearing a human voice, you know.
Totally, buddy. Surprised one of the other guys didn't jump on. I just figured it was time for a cigarette and whatnot, and have a cigarette and chat with you and cool down because it's bloody hot here.
Yeah.
Fucking spring
Good.
clean stuff.
Yeah, the weather's getting nicer here as well.
Oh, dude, our mountains are like fucking green. There's not even hardly patches of snow anywhere, even on the highest peaks right now. So
We never got.
just
Sorry, I'm talking
sorry.
about mouthful. We didn't
That's
get
all
any
right.
snow at all. I don't know
Yeah.
about Manly if he got some at his end. Not here in London.
Well, last year, I mean, I used to have to drive up the mountain about 4 or 5K just to find enough snow to drop my sled because everything else was rocks. This year was a little better, but it was a very short window. And it fucking sucked because the first year I was up here, maybe the first 2 years, we had so much fucking snow, it wasn't even funny. Like,
Mm-hmm.
you're driving down the highway and you feel like you're being fucking, like, you get claustrophobia. There was so much snow, right?
Yeah. I remember years ago. Yeah, like halfway up my shin, kind of thing.
Yeah.
But now it's hardly anything.
Nope. That's
Each
gonna
year is
suck.
like a new record of heat waves. So my kids are already not really liking the warmer weather. I'm like, it's still just spring. Summer's not here yet.
Nope. I mean, we generally get forest fires here when there's snow still on the ground. So these last couple of dry fucking winters, not looking good. I mean, we spent all fucking last summer in, almost permanent darkness because there was so much smoke in the air.
Yeah.
So, oh, well, it is what it is. Let it burn. Rebuild later.
Well, natural events. So it's gonna happen. It's gonna happen, kind of thing.
Right.
Make sure you're safe and those around you and things like that. I mean, I'm sure you got contingency plans for things like that, right?
Oh, yeah. We always have once the spring comes here, you pack up the back of your car, right? Or have a couple of go bins so that you can, pack up whatever you need, type of thing. And just in case you got to leave everything fucking, last minute and like they do an evacuation or something, right?
Yeah, it's more the unusual, unexpected events. I think that are catching people out. Like I know over in the States, there's been pretty bad flooding in parts of Europe. There've been
Yeah,
bad
they had
flooding.
floods. If we were to get
Yeah.
a flood here, we'd be fucked.
Yeah. I mean, people, yeah, same here. Like on the whole, like
Something
my
just
city.
happened with your microphone, buddy.
Oh man, how embarrassing! Am I roboting or something?
Sounds like a robot.
Oh no, the curse of the robot.
Should my
I don't know how to fix that issue. Maybe if I
Could be
close
my
all my.
earbuds. Oh, it's my earbuds. They've just shut down.
Oh, okay. Well, maybe it's you then.
No,
Can
they're
people,
back. Yeah,
anyone
it
in
was
the?
me.
Okay. If there's any roboting people in the chat box, let us know. Just out courtesy, decency, be decent of you. Let us know.
Just stupid earbuds disconnected for no fucking reason, then reconnected. Can you still hear me?
Yeah. See, yeah, I hear you. I mean, it could be the alien satellite government, whatever, in orbit, messing with the world.
Oh, they're listening to me.
It could be cyber hackers.
Justin Trudeau knows I'm coming for his job and his head. Bye.
They're going on about the Russian Well, they're going on about the Ukrainian refugees and how the Russians could either sort of exploit that or integrate some spies amongst them, and then we'll have like some spies in the UK.
I don't know. I thought it was funny. I heard that at like 150 or 50 out of the 150 were in the UN fucking meeting there and walked out on good old Trudeau. I thought it was pretty funny. Haven't seen it yet, but I'm definitely gonna look it up. Yeah.
How is he still in the position of power that he is?
Because we have a bunch of cowards that won't shoot the motherfucker. Don't get me wrong. Trucker protest, totally fine with that. The fact that they went unarmed was fucking like going to a speech with no pants on.
Oh, hold up. We got a banana has slipped in.
Hello. You toasted me in with your conspiracy talk, Billy. I was happy.
Oh,
I was
God.
happy just chilling in the chats, and no, he has to talk conspiracies with his harp and his weather control.
Oh God. That's
Yeah,
outside my range.
Yeah. It's like all the aluminium particles in the
yeah. The chemtrails.
That's why
Chemtrails.
bad internet.
Yeah, the 5G satellites. Yeah, don't forget them.
Yeah.
Right, let's move on quickly because I could talk about that all day.
Yeah, well, have you guys got anything to say about codependency?
Oh, I've got quite a lot. Where do I start? Don't know
Well, I
about
think
you, Chris.
Codependency used to be a normal thing, but it was reciprocated properly.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean? You relied on each other, not one person relied on someone else to do absolutely everything.
It was backed up with physical codependency, wasn't it?
Yeah.
Rather than what we got now, because a lot of physical codependency is on the state. So the state's got the physical codependency, and the couples are just left with the emotion.
Sometimes they even got the financial codependency.
Yeah,
right?
that's it.
I mean, especially here and in the U.S. I mean, that fucking Title 4D bullshit. There are tons of women here who are completely dependent on the fucking government to be husband and fucking father.
And that tears couples apart in itself, because that sows distrust, because you gain trust by working together, and couples don't work together no more. They work, they do their own things. Most.
Sorry, go ahead, Billy.
Can you see how what the different varieties of dependency you guys are illustrating there?
Yep.
Isn't the one I'm talking about? So you can see, like, it's not just about being like financially reliant on someone, or you're sharing a household and you're sharing chores and duties. Yes, that is being sort of codependent, but this in a clinical setting, or in this sort of trauma PTSD style codependency, it's much more. It's the self-esteem and the sense of identity that is the it's like a supply, and is the connecting attachment style.
Mm-hmm.
Well, I think that as men, we used to get that naturally, because I mean, I was naturally became dependent on the ability to trust my ex-wife. You know what I mean? I believed that what I was doing was a benefit for not only her, but she would reciprocate for me. But that's not the game we're playing anymore. I'm pretty sure that's how it was naturally, but that's not the game we're playing anymore. At least not the one they're playing. Right now, it's just you give, they take. You give, they take. That's the end of it.
Well, that's very true.
They're done.
And that's why, like, relationships of the future, if there are going to be any, it's going to be so unromanticized in a way, because before you can even have a chance of pair bonding, it's going to be like, let's say me and you meeting up for a dinner date, whatever. It's going to be like, right, what do you define it's going to be like an interview. Be like, what are your
Yeah, it already is.
principles? Yeah. Here's a contract. This is what I call love. This is what I call trust. I expect this from you. What do you expect from me? So we're moving into a transactional base, and as we've covered, I mean, transactional love is not love. That is a
Yeah.
business. It's an arrangement.
Yeah, well, Billy, I mean, you gotta be honest though. I mean, when these women are going in with fucking lists of demands that they want, they have no intention to give anything back.
Well, that's exactly
That's
right.
why
So,
that's why if you ask them what you are gonna give me for this, oh well, you get to be with me. End of story.
well, that's right. I mean,
Oh,
this whole like, what do you bring to the table sort of argument? It's like, in my romanticized head, I'm not interested in furniture or objects. I mean, they talk about being objectified, and there you go. They're doing it themselves anyway. They're making like, these are my assets. These are my uh my credentials or whatever, and we're going to make some sort of transaction. Like, what happened
yeah.
to getting to know the person?
Well, I mean, I could even understand the transaction. I do transactions all the time, but
Well, I
I better
mean,
be getting something for it. Not you get something for it, and what? I get to fucking be the one to supply it. That's my reward. I get to be the one to supply you with your fucking demand. Oh yeah, no thanks. You know what I mean? That's the dating world now. That's why these women can't find anyone. There's no one
Oh,
out there good enough for them, for one, and nobody wants that shitty deal.
that's the exact reason why I made that video today, man. Because I've been having those exact feelings for quite a while, and it's you as it's like you see yourself. I'm trying to get. I know I want to say, but I can't say it in words. You see yourself in them, and it's like they suck the soul out of you, and
Yeah,
you.
they hold you
Says that
hostage.
as well, but it says you lose the sense of self, but your soul is in them now, so you follow them around, kind of thing, because they have your soul in their hand.
Yeah, and it's a
well, if
ransom.
it, yeah, but if you took one of these shitty deals, like what Hemi's saying there, the whole "I am the table," if you took one of these shitty deals, they're not. They're telling you up front. I really can't even list what you get, other than you get the privilege to be around me and to do all these things for me. Outside of that, they offer nothing, and they know it. They fucking know it. They know they offer nothing. But if you're silly enough to fucking fall for it, possibly end up in like a baby trap or whatever the case may be.
Well, Chris, if you ever need a slave, you know where I am.
Well, I don't like to call them slaves. I like to call them prisoners of war.
But the I like to call it the sophistication of their manipulation. It just rolls off the tongue so nicely.
It does. It does.
It's getting lower and lower because their effort, they can't even be bothered to like try and pull the wool over your eyes anymore. So they're kind of up front. It's like, look, I am the table. This is what I want. I'm basically telling you that I'm going to abuse you, and if you accept, then don't be angry with me because you've been warned.
Yeah, that's actually a perfect example right there, Billy.
Now give me the money.
It's not that they can't list what they don't bring or what they do bring. It's just they know they're offering you nothing. So how do I tell you I'm offering you nothing in return?
Well, I am offering
you.
I am offering you something. I'm offering you the truth that I'm going to abuse you.
Yeah, well, maybe that at best, but I mean, when you're actually like vetting somebody, like fuck, man, we used to be able to make marriages work and they were beneficial for both parties when both parties didn't even know each other.
Well, that's the
You
thing.
know what I mean? Like,
so why? Yeah, so it's become very selfish, very self-orientated, and why would that be a result? Because they got the lack of we'd call it like integrity, but because they got a lack of self-identity, like they've been stunted and arrested in development, they've got low self-esteem, etc. then it's like an empty vacuum void. So going forward in life, it's now trying to fill in that void, and this is where they become selfish. Now instead of so if they were able to in their younger years to create their sense of self properly, like a healthy person, then they wouldn't be so selfish.
Well, Billy,
Because there
I want
wouldn't be a
to
need for it.
go back to that thing, where I mentioned like people used to get together before they even really knew each other. Like
But
we've all
just
seen
quickly
it.
before we move on that, but this is emotionally, not physical, yeah.
Yeah,
This is
well,
emotional
both.
selfish, yeah.
Yeah, we've all seen it in the movies. We've all heard of it in the history books, where like one neighbor, who had a farm over here had a daughter, and one neighbor over there who had a farm, type of thing, had a son. And, those parents did what they could to put those two kids together, because then at the end of the day, when both those parents pass away, their grandchildren will now own both estates, type of thing. You know what I mean? Like, it was, looked at as a big financial transaction, yes, in one way, but it was to benefit like both families. You know what I mean?
Yeah, but yeah. So traditionally, you could not accommodate, but you could consider other people's feelings, like your children and the future, because you weren't so self-absorbed, just trying to be like a vampire and sucking it all
Yeah.
for yourself. But now, where there's that deficit of integrity, with that is also like the lack of empathy and compassion for other people. You can't think about other people, like even your own children or the future, if you're just so focused on your own self gain in that selfish manner.
Mm-hmm.
Well, and I mean, like, I'm sure lots of people got together back then and were married and having kids before they actually loved each other.
Well, they weren't as
You know,
mentally ill back then.
that's true too. That is true as well. But I mean, like, we all knew what a wife brought, right? At the very bare minimum, right? She was the caretaker of the husband and the children in the household. That was the bare minimum. Now they don't even have anything to add to the list, so they throw in fucking words like "I am the table."
Yeah.
And anyway, brother, I got to get back to my spring cleaning here, but I'm gonna just keep listening in the background. And if you're still on when I'm done, I'll pop back in.
Okay. All right.
Awesome, guys.
Do you want me to
Thank you
beat
for
you
having
out?
me. Huh?
Do you want to be in the backstage or something like that?
No, I'll shut down Streamlabs because it really heats up my phone. I'll just go back to YouTube.
Amanda, do you know how to pin a link in the chat box so it's sort of like displayed at the top?
I have no idea. I've
I've
never
seen
used StreamYard.
I've seen other
No
people do it.
idea.
What's
Yeah.
the star do? No, I'm going to put a star in it. I don't know if that does anything.
So say if you've got any questions to knock me over for 6.
Well, I can do this. I'll do it like that. So if
There you
anyone wants. Right. So
a lot of what you was talking about was reminding me of my with my own past relationships, with my best friend and the big ex,
yes,
So, it was a big blast of the past.
yes. I was. I had a feeling that this conversation would resonate with a lot of, to be frank, like a majority of people, really.
Yeah. And so it's like, as you was talking, I was sort of reflecting even more, because obviously we talk backstage, even more realizing the little, like, these little niggles, these leftover nuggets from all that damage,
Yeah.
So it's interesting, like not narcissistic fleas, but the equivalent of, like, codependent fleas.
A bit like that, yeah. And this is ultimately, when it comes to the path of recovery and healing, this is that it's going to add and contribute to understanding that, because how are you going to fix a problem if you don't know what the problem is, or you don't understand how the problem came to be.
Exactly.
So you have to kind of backtrack and be like, right,
Mm.
how did I get here? Where did I go wrong?
Yeah, and for any listeners out there, the reason why I've come up to that conclusion is because of all the mindfulness and meditation and self-reflection I've done beforehand. Otherwise, I would have just noticed the surface area and not the deeper meaning.
Yeah.
So,
I mean,
you need to take steps.
Yeah, there needs to come an acknowledgement, especially like when
Yeah.
if we're dealing with codependency, that we might think we're making bad decisions, but that's implying that we're using like cognition, like critical thinking, when we're not. We're making these decisions based on the emotional. We're being pulled along by the emotion.
And it's like I'm a good case study. Sometimes in the mornings, I mean, obviously, you'd have to be the analysts had to be around me at time, because obviously with my issues and lack of sleep, I have like emotional irregularity in the mornings. So I'm like I can actually live and study my own little errors and my own, and as silly as it sounds, these issues, these 5G issues have helped me in a sick sense find out more about myself, which is a weird way of looking at it.
Well, this is why pain is a teacher.
Yes.
Yeah. So if everything was all happy, happy, sunshine and rainbows that people like to say it is, what does that tell you? It tells you like they're in ignorant
Yeah.
or bliss.
And that can only work for so long,
Well,
until
it's delusional,
yeah,
isn't it?
yeah,
It's denying. It's like I can't face the truth of pain because it hurts too much. So I'm going to self-delude and live in a fairy tale where everything is wonderful and pristine and perfect, and everything is on up and up. When really they're bleeding out the bottom. But because they have that lack of acceptance and the accountability to really, see what's going on properly, it's an issue that will. There's no way. How is it going to get better? So it's only going to be getting worse. And the way they compensate, they start to compensate and be like, no, it's I'm totally fine. It's like, dude, your leg has fallen off. Oh no, it's just a flesh wound.
Don't worry, it's just a flesh wound.
Yeah. I mean, the thing is, the codependent does that a little bit. They neglect their own self-care because they don't want. They're they're scared to admit.
I can relate to that. Yeah, because in the mornings, like when I wake up and I'm in that kind of erratic state. It's really hard to keep routines and look after yourself, because keeping routines about self-discipline and, as you said, self-love, self-worth, self-identity, helping.
Yeah, when they say like, look, when you've got a purpose or a meaning or something like that in life, then you're very motivated to do it, like a passion. If you've got a passion, you're very motivated to do it. So what is that suggesting? It's suggesting that you need some sort of external locus of control. Without something to throw yourself at, you won't do it for yourself.
Yeah, and I think because a healthy solution for codependency is actually getting lost in art and creativity, in that sense of finding yourself, because instead of sucking energy out of another person, what you're doing, you're releasing energy onto something that creates a symbol of what's in you right now, what's in there, that the creativity, because music and art, painting, pictures, poems, a lot of that's drawn from how you feel right now. It's a part of a catharsis, and it's a symbol you can gain energy back from and reflect. It's like a mirror. Without using another human being, you're using a mirror.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, there is a little bit of a like a knife edge there.
I agree.
If you're doing it for your own, like a self-investment, then yes, it's a wonderful thing, because you're for a codependent who's about sacrifice, to turn that around and be self-investing is absolutely brilliant. Where it's like a bit of a knife edge, where he might not realize he's doing it, is if he's doing something he thinks is interesting, but he has a sentiment like, let's say, try to pick up an example. Let's say he's
The Horseman. No, I'm joking.
Horseman. Do you want it?
I'm taking the
Okay.
piss, you know.
But it could be, I think it would be applied to anything. But the point I'm trying to make is that he's doing work under the notion that in a servitude kind of manner. So let's say I'll do it in a more kind of objectified type of way. Let's say he likes to fix cars, and he says that the reason why he spends time on his own fixing cars isn't for his own self fulfillment. It's so that he can get the skills to be then able to share that with the community. So he's not really self-investing, even though he's picking up the skills and he's doing it because it makes him feel
I know
better.
what you mean,
He's doing it for he's still being a servant.
I get that.
So yeah, I mean,
I can relate to that, to make it clear for any musicians out there, is that when I become a musician, I did it for, which I didn't realize at the time. Right, I did enjoy music, but I was actually doing it for the girls, the music, and the fame, you know. And then as I grew older, I sort of started losing my passion, and I had to reignite it later on, because I realized what it was for, and I didn't actually want those things. Did that make sense? So I invested into music for the wrong things. So I had to spiritually check in with myself, and I started doing it for myself then, to reflect on myself and to catharsis.
And that's the sort of like, you know, when people talk about like a malaise or something like that, that's when they kind of realize. So they spent some time, they were motivated at first to participate in some sort of activity, thinking that this is wonderful. It doesn't get reciprocated back, so he starts to lose the meaning. Why am I doing this sort of thing? And then he realizes that
hits home right now with music.
It's not fulfilling for himself. So what happens? He starts to basically crash and burn. So he becomes bummed out, depressed, lacking of the motivation, and then he starts from that. I mean, I was in my script or whatever. I have a section where it goes on. He starts to, if there's no one around for him to be a servant to, and he doesn't want to, you know, he doesn't think highly of himself enough to do things on his own merit or whatever, for his own gain, then he'll slip into learned helplessness. And then he's in the danger. Once he's into learned help, then he will slip into victimhood. So if he's not careful, like a bit like the narcissist in the spiral of self-destruction, things getting worse and worse and picking up more and more bad behaviors, the codependent can also pick up bad behaviors, but a different set of bad behaviors, or actually it's a similar set. I mean, the narcissist will become victimhood as well, but the narcissist uses victimhood as a weapon, whereas like the codependent will use the victimhood as a way to pull in sympathy to get the attention of other people. Again, the narcissist does it as well, like pull in sympathy, but the codependent will be pulling in people. He needs people to come to him so that he can then become the servant again and help them. So the authentic victim, there is actually a moment of authentic victim when I should have really added it to the anger section, when he's got this behind the curtain anger, frustration, rage, temperament that now and again pops out and shows itself. that is actually coming from the place of authenticity. That's his true self there, manifesting. Like there's been a misjustice, something isn't right. I'm not happy about something. So here comes the angry side. So this inner child of his, even though it's been stunted, emotionally arrested, and it's in atrophy, it's actually and yes, it's got a broken heart, and it's very sad, and all it wants is basically to be loved. It's also got a very angry component to it, because kids, imagine what kids are like when they're young. Like they have a tantrum, they have a strop.
Yeah,
So
yeah.
they can't manage their because also like the true inner child, being a child, hasn't got the emotional skill to be able to regulate how they feel, just like a real child.
Hmm. I mean, you know how calm I sometimes seem over, laughable over Discord about things. Like I actually, because like obviously my emotional things, I sometimes act like a child in the morning, silly as it sounds. And what was it now? It was I've told you about the ombudsman and so like after they've told me the result, obviously I didn't reply to them because I'm mature enough not to emotionally vomit on them that much anyway. I was getting angry and frustrated. And it's like, these people need justice. And then, after you calm down, you reflect, you go, that's the inner child that's not being tamed, you're not controlling.
Yeah, yeah.
So,
It's a little bit like a little bit like a dissonance. So yeah, you're you're having to suppress the inner child
yeah, yeah.
who wants to react instinctively with frustration, and it makes that inner child a little bit more angry, because it's kind of,
Yes.
I mean, I get that with my kid. Like she wants to be angry or something, and I'm telling her like to calm down and like breathe and all this, and it must, from her point of view, it must be frustrating, because she's like, what the f, yo? Why are you telling me to sort of I want to lash out or whatever it is she wants to do? Uh, and from her point of view, she doesn't understand how dangerous that can become if if
uh,
left, if left unchecked.
just,
So
just, just don't
it's
get her
not,
talking to council members, man. She'll turn
yeah.
into a murderer.
Well,
Those
I
people are
mean,
nasty, man.
yeah.
Well,
So there's an element of having a self parent, the
yeah.
child within, and
Hmm.
for the child within to realize they're still young, so they're
Yeah,
not
yeah,
going to
yeah.
understand some of these higher up parental guidance that is being passed down to them.
The self-reflection kind of thing, and that's why they require people got good parents, to reflect upon and teach them these self-reflecting techniques and
Yeah,
remind them about it. Because kids are very hyper and low, and they're still not low, but still learning. There's so much to absorb as a child. You got to keep reminding them that this is quite important
yeah,
because there's that
and
much information.
definitely, and maybe this might sound a bit sexist, but this is kind of like the importance of having masculinity or fathers
Yes,
or
yes.
men in a society, especially when you consider like men are more um, space orientated. We're more kind of like physical world, sort of simplistic, whereas women are very much more emotional. Now, if women were much, if they leveled up their uh, literacy on the emotional understanding, the depths and things like that, then yeah, they might actually be um, very good when it comes to regulating children's emotions when they're older. But until they develop those skills, then the man is the one that's keeping those emotions in check.
I know I might be knocking you to the side a little bit, but do you know anywhere which is ideal for people to go to practice and learn some emotional literacy?
There's courses,
To help people out there who are interested if
you
they want to go and seek it.
look up CBT, cognitive behavioral therapy.
CBT.
Yeah, so that's
Hmm.
cognitive behavioral therapy. That's normally used for borderlines, but it will be applicable in this sort of situation as
Yeah.
well.
I come across it. I don't know if I should say who, but I come across it through actually looking into, because I was just generally into psychology. So somehow I come across this one person, and this guy did a course on emotional literacy, and that's how I come across about it. And it helped me a lot, but I only did a little bit of it, and so I haven't even gone through a full course. So it'd be interesting if I could actually get through a full course.
It's it's definitely worthwhile. It's definitely recommended.
Mm-hmm.
Helps not just yourself, but helping understanding other people. And it's
Yeah,
pretty easy to do. I mean, it sounds kind of, some of it sounds kind
yeah.
of obvious. It's like,
Well, even the therapist who recommended it, he says he had to go through it even recently, like in the last couple of months, because he went through. Because even though he's a therapist, you know, you could talk about being a narcissist and that, but it's still hard to spot them. So he had to have like reflect on his own emotional literacy recently. So even therapists have to do it.
yeah, yeah. I mean, I was doing my parental course recently, and it's not based around emotional literacy. It's not focused on it, but it's heavily tied into it, like how to be a good listener. How to hear how to read the emotion rather than focusing on just the words being said. Like if we take the area of anger, and I said to you, so tell me then, what kind of things happen when you feel angry? What would you say?
Time speeds up, obviously, and I get a lot of surface thoughts of justice. I need justice. That is the first thing, and then I sit down and think, because after all my work, my first stage is, do I deserve this justice? What have I done to deserve this justice?
Yeah.
And
So
then I analyze it. Yeah.
Take it more basic than that.
Yeah.
What are some of the simple symptomology? So what is your body when you feel angry? What happens to your body?
It does
It
heat
doesn't
up.
necessarily
It does heat up.
Right. Okay, heats up. Right.
Yeah.
Okay. All right, that's one. Got another one?
Yeah, the time speeds up, so the perception
Good.
gets
Right.
narrow.
Right. What happens to your hands and your muscles? Maybe,
I don't get that angry.
you hear about people.
I
Okay.
don't. I probably smoke too much weed to get that angry.
The weed. Yeah. But you hear about people that get tense up, right? They might be shaking.
Yeah. Sorry, I'm gonna maybe cough just
So
set my throat. No, it does happen, but not regularly. I'm gonna clear my throat. Something in my throat.
but it's good that you point out the time speeds up. I mean, we would say so you become more impulsive. So that's basically right. We're breaking it down.
The potential to be more impulsive, definitely, yeah. Because it's just a moment of whether I'm strong enough at the time, how much I'm affected at the time, how much sleep I've had, how much headache I've had. It's just because I'm in an individual I'm in an individual situation. It's a bit weird.
If you're angry, would you be able to theorize the interdynamics of the universe?
On an extremely bad. Oh, sorry.
Or would you be the opposite, and you can't? Your mind is clouded over, and you're too focused on what has triggered you.
On an extremely minute surface level, yes.
Yeah. So
I can recognize it. So I can recognize it's there, and that that's through the self-reflection and meditative work I've done. So if I didn't do that, I wouldn't even be seeing that in those moments of heat. Because human beings, we all have these in certain emotional times. So
yeah. But we can see that when in states of anger, our view becomes much more narrow. You're like
Of course, yeah. Of course, yeah.
you become
Yeah.
focused, and as a result, will you make good decisions or bad decisions when you're angry?
It depends. I wouldn't advise this for everybody else, but sometimes I have a good intuition, and sometimes it's sort of like I hit it on the money and I reply nicely back, and it just sort of solves the situation on the odd occasion. But no, not really.
Generally no.
Generally,
Generally no.
no. But as I say, that there is a way I can do it without causing a ruckus, kind of thing.
Yeah. So, but generally,
Within myself and them as well.
yeah. But whether or not these things necessarily apply to your personal situation is one thing. But when it comes to the like looking at the therapy, it's just you want to learn it as like a subject matter, because you might have interactions with someone who is angry, and then you'll be able to understand them better because you can see where they're coming
Yeah.
from. They're being very impulsive, and they're making poor decisions because they've got a very narrow view of what because they're angry.
Interesting you said that. Interesting you said that, because when I'm angry, when I see someone else angry, that weirdly calms me down.
Yeah.
Weirdly, because it's sort of like, hang on, like I'm just say, like, even it's across the street, I haven't caused it. I could be walking there really angry. I mean, and I can cause it as well, but that's sort of the worst kind. But say I see it, and it gives me a calm, it calms me down in a way of like, I sort of, I wouldn't say codependent, but I have a natural need to, like, a person shouldn't need to be angry. They deserve the right to be calm. That kind of, I need to help that person, kind of thing. So I have that instinctive. It calms me down because I got instinctive to help people, whether I do it or not.
It's very common actually what you just described there. It's kind of, it's like a little bit like an out of body experience. You're seeing someone else making you think.
Yes.
I mean, it's almost like let's say you're on your own and you're being angry, and someone was videotaping you, and while you're angry, they played it back. I mean, let's assume you didn't just smack them because you're so angry. You're like, what the hell are you doing recording me? But if you were to watch this playback while you're being angry, there's a good chance you would de-escalate, because you'd be like, "Crikey, is that how I'm acting? Is that how I'm?"
Yeah, exactly. And I've only had that happen to me one occasion, and what actually happened is that I actually recited what I said in that angry moment in a calm manner, and they understood it.
Yeah.
That only happened once, so because I've only had that opportunity once. I've tried it with my own parents to educate them, but I was playing it to them, and they wasn't even listening. So there's no helping anybody out there, is there? So, but, I suppose a lot of people out there can relate to that.
I mean, it's quite a lot of things going on there. People that you're listening, people that you're communicating to, their point of view, what it is you're trying to achieve, and then there's other like simplistic kind of. I mean, maybe they just simply were too distracted with something else. Maybe they were tired. Maybe you weren't talking loud enough. But this is why I think as well, live streaming and people having conversations. I mean, this is basically talk therapy.
Yep.
And so communication is a vital skill that is severely underdeveloped in this society. People don't know how to communicate effectively not necessarily anymore. I like, did we ever do it effectively in the first place? If we look at human evolution, how long have humans been on the earth? like 150,000 years or something like that.
God,
Or
there's so many different answers because of history. Yeah, just say some God knows.
a
Yeah,
bloody long time.
yeah,
Okay, so we
yeah,
could say
yeah.
a bloody long time, right?
Stupid amount. Yeah.
Well, actually, we'll put another, right? For argument's sake, let's just say 100,000 years.
Yeah.
Now, dialogue, talky, mouthy, you know, wordy, that has only been in existence in this scale example, maybe 200 years. It's nothing. See where I'm going with this? So the majority of human evolution, people weren't talking with words. They were communicating in other ways. So emotion is a lot older. Emotion as a form of communication is a lot older than actual verbal dialogue. And in part, it's one of the reasons why women are highly skilled at emotional communication and reading cues from each other. Because if we go back to like hunter-gatherer times, the men were too busy hunting, so there's not really any conversations to be had. Whereas the women were back at the cave or back at camp with a lot of time on their hands, and learning to and socializing. And part of that socializing will be obviously communicating,
Yeah.
and so they're using that emotional communication to then be able to socialize.
Yeah, and without all the distractions of modern life, they're actually sitting there and watching their kids and learning
Exactly.
from their kids' behavior.
Right.
And the
Exactly.
parents are not learning from the kids anymore.
Right. So that huge chunk of human evolution
Yeah,
has had
90%. Yeah.
has had women being affluent in socializing skills and emotional well, kind of like emotional literacy, but being emotionally skillful, or however you want to put it. And so eventually when people start using dialogue and language, communications and words and literature, we are still, I mean, look how many new words we're creating nowadays. We're taking two words, we're smashing them together and creating a whole new word like coronagina, you know. And then we, you know, or whatever this sort of slang is and things like that. So we're constantly like modifying modern day vocabularies and terminologies. So it shouldn't be any surprise then that we're bad communicators at this endeavor, you know. And not only are we bad communicating with our words, but being guys, we haven't really developed the emotional communication either to go with it.
Yeah.
We're still very bunga bunga caveman like in that sense.
Along with being this, was it 80% single mother household now? So the men are away from the kids, so they're also arrested in development to a degree because they're not watching their kids grow up. They're also not learning from them.
That's right. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. So this is the kind of problems we're now experiencing, where communication breakdown is. It sounds like something that might be like, you know, mundane or insignificant or like no big deal. All right, yeah, people had a community, you know, they had like a lover's tiff or something like that. But it's like, no, this is actually a big problem. Not only are we having a breakdown of relationships and social bonds and socializing aspects of the society, but if we're unable to communicate effectively with one another, how on earth are we going to be able to repair it? And this is why we get women at the end and be like, well, I don't know how to talk properly, and I'll just say I am the table. It's like, I ask you, what do you want for dinner tonight? What's your answer? I am the table. Like, like English, motherfucker, do you speak it?
No, it's very interesting what you said there, man. I don't know what I can add to that. So,
I mean, if anything, people are like leaning into the fact that they are bad communicators as a way of weaponizing it. So it'd be like, oh, I thought you said, like, let's say I hurt your feelings, and you go, hey Billy, you hurt my feelings, and I'd be like, oh, I'm sorry, I didn't realize, I thought you meant such and such instead. So now it's kind of like, well, who's at fault here? Is it your fault because you didn't communicate properly, or is it my fault because I didn't understand what you meant? So are your hurt feelings validated? You know what I mean?
Well, we've actually had a scenario like that, and how I actually practiced that was I didn't blame anyone. I just asked you a question, and I had a thought of what it was, but I was wrong. But I asked the question and I didn't get all right about it. And then as soon as you told me the answer, I was wrong. I was like, oh, okay, that was me. You know, yeah. So
that's the thing. It takes I mean, imagine asking children, very young children, to have an intellectual debate. They're not going to do it, are they?
No.
They just don't have the maturity about it. You know, so they'll have, as we would use our imagination, like the kids will probably be saying silly stuff to each other, and you're a poo-poo head, and you know, all this sort of squabbling or whatever, bickering, and so to have a mature connection with someone, like we're trying to communicate emotionally with someone, we want them to understand, well, that's going to require a level of maturing or maturity. And that's why, like with kids, especially like I'm learning with my autistic child, it's important to have a well understood communication style, because otherwise, like in my example, in my personal life, otherwise my kid's not going to understand anything I'm saying to her. So I have to be considerate of her point of view, think of points I want to make, and how I can communicate that effectively to her so that she can understand it. So this is the kind of thing we need on a societal level. If we were to have improvements in the world, make changes. I mean, look how many like political. I mean, you've got Russia fighting Ukraine. I don't know what it's about exactly, but if they communicated better, you know, maybe they can resolve their issues or something. Maybe I'm being a bit too simplistic there, but a lot of conflict, a lot of debates and strife or whatever. How much of that is a result of the inability to effectively communicate, clear, like, you know, to cross those barriers, articulate yourself, be compassionate, and have the empathy for the other person to understand. So it's a lot of interwoven dynamics. So it's almost like to communicate effectively with someone requires an element of having to be able to relate to someone. There's no point in me speaking to you in a different language because you wouldn't understand what I'm saying.
Exactly.
So I have to use words that I know that you can relate to, so that we're on the same page here, kind of thing. But yeah, how does that affect with code? So let's try and bring it back to the focus of the topic here about the codependent. So
I mean, if you want to carry read on, I can drop out for a bit because I was good listening to you.
Well, you've given me, you've contributed to this stream, and we're talking about the communication style, and this is part of that codependency.
Okay.
So it's relevant. We just have to tie it in. So the codependent, during the bulk of his delusional mode of operation, he's actually he might think he's got good emotional literacy because he's highly sensitive to people's needs. You know, oh, I see you're sad. Hey, I happen to have a hanky. Here you go. You know, so he's been useful. It's like, oh, I see you're stressed out. Here's a cup of tea. You know, so he thinks he is in one way cued into people's emotional needs. He's just poorly connected to his own emotional needs. And so he has a misinterpretation. What does it mean to love? What does happiness mean? He has a pretty good understanding what pain means. But even then, it's something that he needs to sort of double check at least. And eventually, with the healing and the recovery, and it's pretty quick as well. Once that person makes that sort of decision, enough is enough, and we need to really address some serious issues, and they start going down that rabbit hole and deep diving, they'll quickly come to some realizations. It'd be like, even if they don't know exactly what love means, they'll realize that the definition that they've been carrying so far isn't true.
And you start measuring it by its absence.
Start
like
measuring
how them trying to find dark matter, they can't see it, but they're measuring what they can't see. And
yeah,
that kind of thing.
Yeah. So yeah, and so yeah, you could use different techniques to derive a truth of sorts. So you could use what do you call it? Like, is it extraction? No, I think I'm sure it would be a D, not extraction, deduction. The process of deducting.
That's it. Yes, yeah.
And
trial
then
and error.
Trial and error. That's another one. Yeah, exactly. And so the only way of really addressing, I was close to labeling this live stream, codependency cannot be addressed from a position of codependency. You have to step outside of codependency if you're going to address the problems of it. That's saying basically, if the codependent in a way is like a child, then you're going to have to step away from being a child to address the needs of the child. So you're going to have to step into a position of being the adult or being the self-parent to then be able to parent the child. You can't parent the child as a child. So a codependent can't fix his problems if he's going to remain as a codependent.
As you said, become your own parent.
So he has to step away from that, become his own, not just like his own parent, his own mentor, his own therapist, his own teacher, his own big brother kind of thing, if nothing else, his own guardian and protector, whatever it is. But he's not going to be able to do anything if he's still working from a position of being a codependent.
And shortly after that, you'll realise that you'll actually need some professional help and some guidance.
Yeah.
Because you'll be like, oh, hang on. Because that self-reflection in itself will go, I'm fucked up enough to need help. If you're honest with yourself. Because if you got some people might just be stubborn, a bit, a bit jittery about the idea because self-pride. I don't need that. But sometimes you got to open yourself up, let your past traumas go, just to seek this little bit of help.
Definitely, and this is something you bring up a good point because it scares me a little bit when people talk about how therapists bafooey don't need them, they're all rubbish kind of thing. It's like,
maybe you gotta look hard, but yeah,
that's the point. That's the thing.
Yeah.
There are charlatans. There are bad therapists. There are ones that there's no point going to a marriage counselor to treat your PTSD. It's the wrong field. You know what I mean? So, and then you get angry with this marriage counselor and you say, therapists, marriage counselors are crap. It's like, well, you've gone to them with the wrong issue. Of course it's going to be rubbish. But the danger is that you've now spouted out to the rest of the world that therapy is rubbish and is a sham, when it's not quite true. And one of the often common things for the therapist will experience is because imagine the client is having their world turned upside down.
Yeah.
The therapist is
yeah.
cleaning up all these wounds. So what kind of emotional literacy now? So what kind of reaction is the client going to have? He's going to be kind of angry. He's going to be a bit pissed off with the therapist.
Unless he's passive aggressive.
Passive aggressive, but still a form of aggression.
Yeah, and what's the other one? There's passive aggressive, and there's one more. You get sort of learned helplessness, like you're submissive. You like they become sort of a dominatrix. It becomes a relationship in that way if you don't do it properly. You go there for punishment.
Yeah,
and because a lot of women do that, and a lot of kind of submissive men do that. I don't know, like what people call soy boys, but I don't like that term.
Yeah, I mean, a lot of this reaction, there is a difference between reaction and responding or being responsive. So that's another area for a lot of people, not just the codependents, but to realize, like in a state of anger, being impulsive, making instant, harsh decisions, typically a bad decision, perhaps, because it wasn't really thought through. So being angry is a very reaction-based, like an instinctual, knee-jerk thing.
You're in survival mode.
Yeah.
Fight or flight. That's it. Fight or flight. Sorry, that's it.
Yeah, I mean that's where. So we have to kind of be maybe a bit more defined by what we mean by anger, because what we just described there is a sort of like an out of control rage monster, in a way. Because you can still have let's say you were able to pause for thought and actually think about something out. You could still derive the conclusion, like, right, I've meditated on that, and I could tell you I'm still bloody angry. And it's justified or something like this. It's like, okay, fair enough. All right, I'm not going to tell you to sort of say that you shouldn't be angry then, or to calm down or something like that. You just got to
ride the roller coaster and say that's where I think personally creativity comes in. If you can invest that into a song or painting or something, by the time you've finished it, you're not angry no more, and you've still got a Photoshop, a reflection, a recorded copy of that emotion to reflect upon in a calm state.
Yeah, in fact,
you're not working. So you're not working on those Chinese whispers. He said your memory's not the same every time you reflect. But if you've got a recording of it, that doesn't change.
Yeah, and people could, you can, depending on how self-aware someone is, they can utilize their anger in a productive way. Like they want to do some weightlifting, they can be angry about it. It's not exactly a healthy way of doing it, but it's, if they're neglecting their self-health and they got to do something about it, then it's better than nothing. You might if you can't do it out of self-love, then all right, you're gonna have to use anger, but try not to become dependent on being angry, because anger is like a base emotion. I wouldn't be surprised if it's one of the first emotions to develop. Like we are born and we face the world with anger, and so before we learn anything, we learn how to be angry first, and that ties into our survival. So anger in a way is a bit of a survival mechanism.
It is, because kids get angry before they're even 1 year old. They scream and wail in their bed. So it's that the anger just gets manifested into the adult situations if it's not controlled by good parents and a good environment.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, it's not like you get, let's say kids are playing football, they're having a great time. It's not like they're going to suddenly just be angry so there's a reason why the kid gets angry.
Yeah, exactly.
What happened to the kid while they're angry? oh, someone said something nasty to them. Well, why would that make you angry? Because it makes me feel less than. Okay, fair enough. That's why you're angry. I understand now. I see why you're angry. Or they fall over and hurt themselves, and they're not just crying, but they're actually angry about it. It's like, why are you? What? So my environment has injured me.
This is very important, what you've just said there, because this is what the universities pry on. This is how they make all these SJWs. They get all these angry children and they tell them what they're angry about.
Yeah. They tell them to be angry. They tell them to regress back to a state of basic emotion. And so anger in that sense, it's like
So
it's a
instead,
survival. The world is crashing down.
Yeah.
It's the loss of control.
Mm-hmm.
So if you want to get control in life, then be angry.
Mm-hmm.
It's like that's not really the way you should be doing it. I mean, yes, okay, you can see how it would work, but no, it's not a good way of doing it. But that doesn't matter to from these SJWs. They don't care about they don't care about good ways. They just want the control. It's like, okay, be careful what you ask for.
And I can't remember that there's a hormone of, I think it's T with a number on it. But when you're angry, it's actually scientifically proven that this hormone gets produced, and you actually do lose IQ. You actually lose IQ because this hormone's produced when you're angry.
Yeah, well, you can die from it eventually, like stress, right?
Mm-hmm.
Anger,
cortisone is it becomes acidic and toxic.
Right.
Too
Yeah.
much of it.
Yeah. So anger creates additional stress, additional anxiety, and then eventually that will kind of have an impact on your immune system and your general overall health. And if you're not careful, you'll give yourself a heart attack
Mm-hmm.
or an aneurysm or something like that. So yeah, I mean, anger, stress,
Anxiety.
anxiety, yeah, strong negative emotions, all this sort of stuff is not going to be good for the health of the individual.
Nope.
And then for the codependent, like they'll be angry at themselves for their body shutting down on them. They'll be like, I'm not what I used to be. And it's not like I'm not what I'm used to be, and that upsets me personally. It's like I'm not as good as I used to be, therefore I can't be a good servant to anyone. So my sense of self-worth is going down, and I can look at myself and be like, yeah, I'm deteriorating, so this isn't good. So I'm like an old dog that needs to be discarded. I'm no use to anyone. Why am I here? And this starts, or now I'm getting into depression and self-pity, and then that's like I was saying to you before. When things start to crash, they'll easily go into to learn helplessness, and then from there they'll easily switch into victimhood. And depending what happens with that, if they're not careful, now they might actually start becoming like an actual narcissist or something like that, where they invert that victimhood into a sense of superiority, and they start thinking to themselves like,
we should make the world beautiful.
Pretty much, well, they go, so hold on. I'm gonna sneeze. I can feel it coming. Hold on. Right. Bless me, Father, for I have sneezed. So the victimhood superiority complex. So the victim feels. I'm trying to remember the sort of the jumping stones of order. So they feel persecuted, right? They're a victim at the hands of someone else. So someone has done this to them. They've been persecuted, and so he starts to see those persecutors with discrimination.
Mm-hmm.
So quite often, the victimhooded individual will be very, like, he might be racist, might be sexist, might be homophobic. Very strong resentments. He'll use that inner self-resentment that he was harboring for a long time, and he'll start using that and projecting it onto other groups of people.
And even if it's justified, it's still not healthy to hold on to that resentment.
Well, this is the thing. So this is how this is a way of trying to cure that, is by offloading onto other people and saying that those persecutors have come after me intentionally, and he'll weaponize his opponent. He'll hand over his resentment to his oppressors, and say, "See, look how resentful they are towards me." When really he's the one resentful towards them.
I think I'm going to ask Susan to marry me.
Yeah, well, it might make a good housewife after all. You never know what she's like under the sheets, eh?
Yeah.
You wake up with a horse's head next to you.
No, that's just Susan. Oh, sorry.
You're trying to get me banned.
It's the joke. Come on. Fucking took my entire channel away. That's a good joke, isn't it?
Well, yeah.
So.
You'll try not to make her take mine one away.
I apologize, my man.
Don't worry. She's not gonna be.
I got carried away with my.
She's not gonna be listening. Don't worry.
I'm the jester.
But so the victim projects his or her resentment to the persecutors, and then wants to get justice seen to. So he puts himself in a position of superiority, because now he can be. He's judging them. He's saying that these persecutors are wrong, and I am right because I'm the victim. So I am morally higher up than these oppressors of mine. So he's now switched into a position of superiority, and he is entitled, by being in that position, to point the finger down and cast out. We need to punish these evil doers, and if he's successful, he believes he'll be eliminating his resentment, because he's used the persecutors, the oppressors, as a scapegoat for harbinger of his resentment and his frustrations and things like that. So he wants to really punish and really stick it into these oppressors, annihilate them, because in doing so, he will in effect cleanse his soul, because it also adds to his moral superiority, because to be so high up and ordained in such a way, he needs a clean image. He's not going to be that superior if it turns out he's got skeletons in the closet. So he basically uses it's like a cry bully. So he uses people who might not necessarily be real oppressors, but he's going to rubber stamp them with that title. He needs them to be at this point, and he's going to give them the bags of disgusting things he doesn't like, the things that he's ashamed of. He's going to give that to them, and then try to eliminate them. So then he's left but he's got a problem, because he doesn't realize it, but he can only be in that position of superiority thanks to being a victim. It was because he was a victim, that's how he managed to become a superior in a position of power. Yeah. So if he eliminates his opponents and things like that, and he's no longer a victim, then he's going to have to stand in his pedestal on his own merit, and he can't do that because he hasn't worked to get to that status, to that position. He climbed to fame, he climbed to the higher position through being a victim.
Because by the time you get to that higher point, it's already too late. Because if you was going to snap out of it, you wouldn't have even got to that point. You would have, I know it's a funny word for some people, but forgiveness, comes into play. You know, you got to forgive yourself, you got to forgive them, and
Yeah.
you got to move on. You know.
Yeah, well, yeah, like, forgiveness would be like the safety brakes on the train. Like it would stop it from happening if it was
Yeah,
able.
yeah.
But without that forgiveness, there's nothing to really. This guy's being driven by his emotional
Yeah.
need.
Unless it's
Yeah.
unless it's like a current problem that's currently happening, maybe that's something that needs to address. But if it's something in the past, then you know you got to address it. You know, in that kind of psychological manner.
But that's why when we see this guy who's all grandiose and high and mighty, he'll have to now and again play the victim and juxtapose between the two positions, because one can't exist without the other. Well, actually, he can remain a victim, but he's not going to like it. So, if he's in a victim mode, he's trying to move into a superior mode, and when he's in a superior mode, he tries to move into a victim mode. So he's always backwards and forwards, and this is why he's called a cry. He's a cry bully.
It's sort of like that BPD, isn't it? Border personality. It's like switching that kind of state.
Yeah. Well, it's more narcissism, really.
Oh, is it? Okay. Yeah.
You see it a lot in the narcissistic sphere of things. Borderlines have it as well to a degree, but it's not as pronounced or how I've described it just now. That's really, you know.
I got meshed up with the narcissistic borderlines rather than the borderlines that are separate. You know, because that's an easy distinction to get mixed up.
I mean, a grandiose, classical, traditional narcissist, not so much. They don't really need to play victim because they think they're the greatest anyway. They're already superior, and nothing's going to really stop that. But for a covert narcissist, then yeah, they'll love that. That being able to be the victim. You mean I get to be the victim and the master at the same time? Wonderful. Yeah. So I can get all the sympathy and have people attending my needs because I'm the victim, and at the same time I can also be their boss and be the master. Fantastic.
This reminds me of a lot of single mothers' mental perception.
Look how many feminism, Karens, women in general, they say it's a win-win, like victim win, superior wins. So it's a win-win situation. They see it
exactly. And they can claim they've been done over by the man, but they can control him through the child and the state.
Right, exactly. So so I can bully the man, and then when people start thinking, "Oh, crikey, I'm being a bit of a bully," I can go, "No, he hit me, and I'm oppressed. I'm a woman. I'm a damsel." And it's like, so it's like, so we can't hold you accountable ever. Then, we can't keep it to any standards or basically accountability, really, because whenever we go to her for an explanation, she can spin on a dime and be like, well, it's because I was a victim. It's like, okay, so you're a victim. And it's like, right. So then if you're a victim, you can't tell me what to do. And it's like, no, no, now I need to tell you what to do. I need you to pay my alimony. It's like, but I thought you're a victim. It's like, well, no, I've got the courts behind me. It's like, okay, so you're bullying me. It's like, oh, no, but I need the money because I'm so vulnerable and weak and helpless. It's like, make up your bloody mind, woman.
They want the cake and eat it, don't they? That as you said, they're both.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And they think that's it, because it's a double standard. It's a win-win situation, but and as a result, even if they do see the hypocrisy, they have to like flat out deny it and be like, well, I just cannot accept the hypocrisy, even though I am hypocritical. It's like, for fuck's sake, like how can we reason with you? We can't. I mean, that's the point. It's like you can't reason with someone who's being unreasonable. So, and she sees this as immunity. It's like, this is why it's so fantastic and appealing. It's like, no one can touch me. As soon as they come and touch me, I can say I'm a victim. And then once their back is turned, I can now stab them. It's like, damn, man, you can get away with murder. And she's like, yes, I have. How many bodies are you hiding? It's like, many. Look at my body count. It's like, damn.
My rolls are fat,
You're a serial cry bully. Like, yeah. And society is promoting it, like you're saying, like that. This is what they're teaching in school. How to win at life. How to win at life.
Yeah.
You don't have to work hard. It's easy. Just basically victim superiority. Bang, you're set up.
So why you not running the school athlete, what do you, the 100 meters? Why you not running? It doesn't matter. If I walk, I'll still get a medal.
Yeah. Yeah. And in some ways, I mean, so whose medal is worth more? Like, is the first place or the first place trophy, or you get the charity victim medal certificate or whatever? I mean,
Yeah.
it wouldn't be. They'd get a trophy as well, probably the way things are. So it's the victim that gets more praise because they've had to struggle so much more. Life is so much harder for them. So their achievement is greater than the superiority person's achievement. So suddenly the person in the superiority position thinks, crikey, I'm better off being the victim. And then they jump into the victim position.
Because it becomes more rewarding.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You get so you get rewarded to be a slave or to be a victim. And that's what it's for. So it's like, oh, right. So the more I basically ruin my life, the more excuses I have to be able to call myself a victim, the more I'll be entitled to rewards.
I mean, I'm gonna have a perfect example. I can reflect on that because why do you think I've stopped doing those little self-updates and reflections about this 5G stuff? Because we've been speaking behind the scenes, I've actually found out reasons how to protect myself, and I've been debating how to do it. So now I'm no longer a victim. It's now my choice where I am right now. So
Yeah.
so now I'm on my personal situation. I've got to make all these logical decisions on what to do next, and instead of being a victim,
Yeah. Someone who is a true, like in the traditional sense of a victim, let's say they got robbed on the street. They don't like being a victim. Like it feels you feel like you let yourself down because it's like I got robbed, I've lost my money, I don't like this, I don't like being a victim. In future, I'm gonna do things to make sure it doesn't happen again. So a true victim doesn't want to be a victim. They do something to get away from that. But the people that's being it's being cultivated. They're being encouraged to identify. If anyone asks you what kind of background you got, you answer, you say I'm a victim, and it's like, so you take pride in being a victim. It's like, you betcha, I like being a victim because I don't have to be accountable or responsible. In fact, everyone has to bend to my will and my needs, and I'm entitled, and I get to basically get away with whatever I like because I'm a victim. So it's like, wow, how inverted and perverted it has become. And this is what happens with people who are victims of rape, because the true victims of rape are disgusted by the false allegations people make because it lowers the meaning of the word. So we've all been raped, have we? Oh, okay. I guess my true experience when it was horrific means nothing really in the grand scheme of things, because apparently it's such a daily occurrence that it's meant to be, it's normalized. And that's the same thing with, like, I mean, it's not just like with words like rape. I mean, like the word with the narcissism. It's thrown around. Any word that's being thrown around willy nilly, without any appreciation or care, devalues the meaning of the word. It means nothing then. It has no significant value if it's just just abused like that. But these people don't care about that. It doesn't matter. I mean. No, I'm not gonna say grape because
Yeah,
because that is one of the examples of how they're trying to devalue the word rape.
I was trying to say that to keep your stream up because they do take stream downs for saying that. I suppose. I was saying it more of, I have seen streams taken down talking about it. That's all. I know we're not talking in depth or anything dodgy, but just a lot of people use that term as well to protect the streams. So I thought I just
no, I mean, I appreciate that, and I understand if people, I mean, they shouldn't need to. I understand that.
I know that.
They might have to because of what's going on, and they don't want their streams to be taken down. But that's giving in to the bullies.
Yeah, I agree.
So on that,
I'll take that back. I stand corrected.
I mean, if people want to say grape, that's fine. Like, I mean, we all kind of know what they're talking about, what they mean.
Yeah.
But if we're not careful, we're going to be speaking a totally different language because we've had to, like, what's the word?
like when was it last year? There was censoring all our fucking comments and we was talking in numbers and letters.
Yeah, it'd be like that. It'd be like you can't.
Was it 308?
Like Shinobi's left a comment. He uses the word wisdom. It would be like, oh, you can't say wisdom, so we have to think of a different word.
Yeah.
So if we substitute every word because every word becomes offensive, then it's gobbledygook. So at what point are we going to draw a line and be like, enough is enough? I'm not going to play this game. Like, I'm not being facetious when I use the word rape. We just spoke about it in a proper, like, subjective manner. It's in the bloody dictionary. I'd rather be banned or censored, taken down because I was swearing than for actually using a real word.
I wouldn't either, but fair enough.
I'm not inviting.
I'm not
trying to invite any ban hammers here, but anyway, yeah.
Maybe that kind of backfired. I shouldn't have said anything. So.
No, don't worry, man. Don't worry.
You said that earlier on. He's always codependent's always sorry about things. I'm not sorry. Screw you. You deserve it.
and codependents will always be like, thank you, because like the servant has been given his loaf of bread or his bread roll, his glass of milk. There's all the food you're having today. Like, thank you, master. Thank you. Yeah. Well, I hope anyway, like, generally, I've covered the codependency is a big thing, really. And I've still got like probably like 2 pages.
Bloody hell, I'm gonna go through it quickly then.
No, what I might do is actually write out a proper script and just pre-record a video. So that it's more of a packaged kind of deal. But as in terms of talking to the community here and discussing it, I hope it's been educational or whatever, been a bit insightful and useful, a bit more in depth. I don't think anyone's watching. I think they all tuned out.
No, I just hope some people can relate out there, and a lot of people in a lot of similar situations that have been mentioned in this stream. So hopefully, there's a lot of things people can take away, and if they do need therapy, consider it.
Give me a call.
Yeah. Billy the Shrink.
Billy the Shrink. I like that. Yeah. But no, seriously, like if people do want to have a more in-depth conversation about it, yeah, like, do let me know. Whether if they want to have it as a topic, maybe they have questions they want me to discuss as a topic, then let me know. Or if they actually want some counseling to a degree, like therapy. I'm not a qualified therapist, but I'll be happy to assist where I can. And at the moment, I'm not charging anyone for it, so I'll take advantage if I was you. Not you personally, Manny. I mean, like you, whoever's listening.
I think I already take privilege on that.
Yeah, a friend, sounds like a friends with benefit discount thing going.
yeah.
That sounds a bit homo.
Leave that to the audience.
RJ, hello, man. RJ is not JR, is it? The evil brother of JR. So I think we're close to. I mean, we're going to finalize, I think, here with this codependency thing. It doesn't mean necessarily that just because it resonates with people in certain ways. It's like, oh crikey, that means I'm a codependent. Maybe you are, maybe you're not. Maybe you're comorbid with something. I mean, that makes it more dynamic and makes it more confusing. Like you might codependent / borderline, perhaps, or / narcissist or something. Or sometimes you might fluctuate from a state of codependency to a state of like, especially as we're discussing with a crashing, the collapse, when they go into victimhood mindset. Well, you're not really going to be codependent anymore. You're going to be more narcissistic.
Would you say some people become submissive as well? Like learned helplessness kind of thing.
Yeah, I mean, I would see the submissive being more of an element there at that stage of learned helplessness, because that's kind of like a state of utter being lost. So you're not sure what. So the victim / superiority complex comes as a kind of like solution after a period of like, well, what do I do now? So you have someone who's okay. We'll take it back. We have someone who's going through life. Everything seems okay. They start to crash. They start to collapse. Now they're in the gutters. They're hitting the rock bottom. That's the end of an era. Now they're in a state of submissive or learned helplessness, where they're not sure what to do. They don't want to really get any help. If people try and help them, they don't recognize it.
That malaise you said earlier on. You said it was a malaise, yeah.
Yeah, there we are. But that can only really go on for so long, because, I mean, when they enter that, they think, oh, this must be what death is like. I'm about to die. And it's like a week or two goes by, a month goes, a year goes by, and they realize, shit, I'm still alive. I thought I was dying. Well, what am I going to do? So now they have to start thinking about, well, what am I going to do?
Are you really talking about me with this 5G shit? I know you're not, man, but it's just funny.
It's a common thing. Like,
yeah.
Like you hit the gutter and you think it's the end, and because you've got this narrow, like, you can't see the forest through the trees, so you're not really thinking about the future, because there is no future. It's the end. But one day the future does come along. It could be a year, it could be 5 years, who knows? But it's whatever it comes along, and they realize, I'm not dead. I'm actually still here, and being in this malaise kind of sucks. So I'm gonna have to do something about it. Now, one thing they could do, and this is that sort of constructive anger, is they can basically start picking their life up out of anger. So let's say they disheveled look. They haven't taken care of their hygiene. Their house is a mess. Their paperwork is all over the place. Everything's just basically a mess. They can look at that and be like, I'm going to have to start tidying up. But the only way I can tidy up is by being angry with myself.
Are you spying on me? I mean, it's not exactly that bad, but I mean, there are a few of those little things, man. It's like, are you seriously? It's like, yeah. It's exactly what happens, lad. Seriously,
they pull that anger is like it's part of their bag of tricks. So it's like, I need a trick here to get me to do something. I know, I'll make myself angry. I'll be angry with myself to do it. So I'll kick myself on my backside.
Yeah. It likes that dormant passion. that was died out by that submissiveness, the flame that died. It just reignites with that anger, that energy.
No, it's not exactly the healthy, positive,
no, it's not.
Lovely way of doing things, but it's better than nothing when all else fails.
It's sort of like it's the same as taking antidepressants if you're too depressed. At least it keeps you alive.
Kind of, yeah.
Sort of.
I mean, I took that from.
I personally didn't do that, but sorry, but it works.
I took that from my video about pain is all I have. So I took it from a diabetic point of view, where he might do his medication, but not because he wants to actually make himself feel better. It's because he has to be angry with himself to make himself feel better.
Mm-hmm.
It's like I will use anger to make you happy. So it's the contradiction, but so yeah, he entered the malaise. He realizes he's still alive. He can even get angry with himself and pull himself out of that malaise, which would be better than choosing, well, I'll become a victim / emperor. Oh, I hope Chris isn't listening. But, so these are the choices and the kind of the stepping stones in logic, thought processing. And it's a result of like, how is this going to address my emotional need? So they believe that they're being pragmatic. They think this is a practical thing. This is a reasonable thing. This is what a sensible thing a person would do. But they're unaware that this whole theorizing and evaluating their options is primarily based on their emotional need.
Oh shit! I was still muted. Sorry, because my number just spoke to me, so I muted it.
Hello, banana nan.
My banana, yeah. Because I just caught the last end of that. So.
Right. Do you want me to repeat that, or?
I know. Do you want my response on it, or was that good enough?
It's all right. You could always play it back, I suppose. So I think we'll end it there then.
Oh, that's a shame. Not really. It's looking too early, so.
Well, if you yeah. Okay. Unless there's any questions anyone has or any points you want to particularly make. Mm-hmm. Going once, going twice.
Or is there anything you want to elaborate on my experiences from what I've mentioned tonight to prove a point, maybe?
It's up to you if you want to share it. I'm not going to be invasive and ask you to
No, I meant what tonight, what I've mentioned tonight, kind of thing. No, because I thought, because what you was talking, I've actually just recently gone through it, so I'm talk to the hot iron right here,
Right. Well, I mean, your contributions have been much appreciated, so I'm very grateful for your appearance here tonight.
My honest opinions, I didn't think I'd have so much of an elaborate involvement, because I've not been so bright recently, so this is quite pleasurable for me, as well.
Good.
As well.
Good, and I hope you take a lot away with you.
Of course. To be honest, a lot of times I speak with you, it's very meaningful, even if there's nothing meaningful said. There's always a meaningful exchange. So.
Yeah, well, that's one of the we're saying that sometimes, like banter.
Yeah, that's it.
Like scientifically, it kind of doesn't make sense, but it's not meant to make. It's not really meant to make sense. It's as part of talk. It's just basically being able to express yourself, to be heard, to feel like you exist, that you've got a voice. So it doesn't really matter what the words are that are being said or the subject matter. It's just it's just the being able to sort of connect with other people, to know that you're not alone, that other people are out there. So for that element alone, or that kind of experience of being able to just talk random stuff sometimes to people, it doesn't have to be about any serious, you know, is more important in some ways than the actual subject matter.
Yeah,
So,
and doing things of interest, so you both connect on a kind of that level as well.
yeah, that makes it better.
You know,
You know,
so if you're watching like a film where someone doesn't actually like it and the other one does, there might not be that same connection unless it's the banter. You know, unless you're doing it for the banter.
yeah,
But if you could watch a film you both don't like and you can enjoy it that way. You can relate to it that way, kind of thing.
yeah,
So,
yeah.
you know.
More, predominantly what it is being able to share a space with someone so that it helps you to process how you're feeling.
Yeah.
Because sometimes when you're on your own with your feelings, and especially if you don't understand your feelings, it can be quite frightening. It's like I feel a certain way, but I don't have the vocabulary or understanding to know what it is I'm feeling. So it's kind of like a weird sensation, and I can't explain it. But
It's
by being,
the other person's that, you know, when you have an argument and you've got a third person that says something that stops the argument because I'm seeing outside of the argument. That's what the other person is, because it's between you and your child and your adult self. So that third person is that interjection.
yeah, it gives a better perspective. Yeah.
Yeah. They say, "Hey, hang on, you two, you know, calm yourself down. This is, you know, there's no need to get angry about this. What you on about? Look, there's some look over there, more interesting."
Yeah. Look, a squirrel.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, okay. So thank you again, Manly, and everyone in the chat. Have a
Thanks
good
for the
evening,
chat.
and I hope that was food for thought. And like, what? Got to leave it in the comments if you want any questions or anything you want, remarks you want to say. And I haven't really got an outro, so I'll just end it abruptly. Bye bye.